Hey everyone, welcome back to FPL Fran. Today's video is going to be my Game Week 13 free hit draft video. I am actually going to activate the free hit. I haven't activated just yet, but I think I'll probably even do it maybe tonight. I'm recording this video during the first Champions League night, so that's on Tuesday evening. The 8 p.m. games have not happened, but I'm just recording this video because I've just seen that City have mass rotated. So the draft that I'm going to suggest is going to work, right? Unless obviously people come off the bench and get injured, and we can discuss that. But I don't think it's going to dramatically change the draft. This is the first draft that I have. I've looked at a couple draft templates and I've landed on one that I finally like. I think in terms of why I am free hitting myself, quick aside from the FPL chat, I wanted to mention I'm actually playing a new app called Fantasy Gaming Hub. As you can see here, it's even something that I'm playing right here. So this just matches my screen. It's a card-based collection game, also focused around the Premier League, but it's fantasy as well. Different from FPL, it's not around budgets. It's not around sort of, curating squads. It's actually just about building up a collection of players that you can sort of start to field out on specific game weeks. So for example, for this game week, it's very simple to sort of create a squad. I've got a Saturday team. I also have a Sunday team, which I've already set up in place. As I said, my prize player right now is Iliman Ndiaye. Whereas Liverpool, I'm not so fond of. I can even train someone like Ndiaye in the future as well. And that's probably what I'm actually looking to do. Maybe around goals and assists more so than anything else. But the key thing is I can continue to build my sort of squad of players, my collection of players, and then actually I can go head to head versus other managers in the world and hopefully promote within certain divisions. So right now, I just got promoted from Kickabout to Park Players. I'm working all the way up to Legendary in due course. But you get free prizes, you get free rewards as well for competing in these competitions, and you can even get promoted, as I said, within these leagues. The key point is to sort of build up your card collection. If you want to actually get your daily free pack now, have a look at my personalized link in the description below, and you'll get redirected to your iOS store or an Android store to start playing right now. I think 15, 16, even 17 are pretty reasonable weeks. Ultimately, though, I just think, okay, when you have the 5 free transfers sitting around your lap, it's most likely you can manage the kind of like what's needed, I guess, around the situation between, let's say, 16 and 17. I know 16 is particular because a lot of us are invested into Palace, but I think I'm happy dropping, for example, a Palace defender on a week like that and persisting without. I'm also happy with just simply having Haaland on game week 16, which I think is the main advantage of the game week 16 draft. Potentially, arguably dropping Haaland and then saying, okay, I'll go for both Saka and Salah on a week like that and take advantage of the fixtures that are there. But to me, just because I don't see myself really doing that, I'm more comfortable doing the free hit on 13. It's still going to be a Haaland draft, right? And as a Haaland captaincy. And with City mass rotating, I think it almost sort of locks it into place for myself. And let's just start the draft video. So with the draft, I think it's key to just focus on this specific game week, right? So all we really need to do is probably look at some sort of evaluation of the fixtures for this week. I think, what strikes to my head when I look at the fixtures is this is a week where there's a lot of differential defenses. So, it's not often you play Brentford defense. It's not often you play Aston Villa defense. If anything, because of the lack of DEFCON within Aston Villa, a lot of their defenders have been ignored this season. For a team like Brentford, they've obviously just been conceding a lot of chances, but I think their recent performances actually show that they're on the up as a team and probably a little bit underrated alongside a team like Brighton as well. It's funny that they both matched up as, I think, two teams that are maybe underrated by, I think, just the general opinion, or in terms of like how happy people are to own certain players from these teams outside of Thiago, let's say, or a Minte. Still, I think a lot of the picks that are not popular, like a Van Heck or a Welbeck, for example, these are still very, very good picks in the game. And on a week like this is a great match for Brentford. It's a great match to target Aston Villa. And finally, we have a week where Arsenal's clean sheet odds are not that high. And it makes sense to go with that. Like, I mean, I've got Raya, and I'm happy to not have him on a fixture like this. Yes, United just blanked, but I still think that sort of Palace United game is not necessarily going to be some sort of Palace shutout of United, like, for example, the Everton game was. But of course, you can take those narratives and sort of drive them to where they are. I think when you're talking about fixture maximization, though, City is very high up here with this sort of game versus Leeds. Leeds have been pretty flat in terms of attack as of late. Like, I think they've performed well at home, but it's notably away from home where they don't really muster up much of an attack. At the same time, I think you've got a Liverpool fixture here, which Liverpool's a tough sort of topic to sort of jump onto, right? Because I think I don't own too many Liverpool players. I own one, to be fair, in my rolling team. And it's odd that I'm not going to own that player within my free hit. But I think when I think about the fixtures for a week like this, I'd still target Liverpool as an attack to kind of chance. I mean, I'd still take Liverpool versus West Ham away than maybe an Arsenal attacker versus Chelsea away, and that could be wrong. Like I think that's the whole point of free hitting, though. West Ham still conceded a lot of chances towards a team like Bournemouth, and of course that was away. This time they'll be at home. But if there's something Liverpool have been remotely decent at this season, it's been the attack. And of course, they just didn't score a single goal versus Forest, but they still actually racked up fairly decent XG. I think where they sit in terms of the league table in terms of XG is probably somewhere around 6th, whereas as the defense, they're actually more around mid-table. So yeah, I think if I was targeting a team like Liverpool in a good fixture, it's still the attack that I would probably persist with first. It just so happens that there are some, I mean, DEFCON has changed how we view defenders. You don't need purely good defenses. You can be a really excellent DEFCON, I guess, producer to sort of level set clean sheet odds. But yeah, these are the kind of fixtures I would target on a week like this. But going back to maybe Crystal Palace versus United, I think there's an angle here for maybe an Ismaila Sarr as well. So I'll talk about him as a pick. I think he's interesting when you're considering the free hit. What I really want is a Crystal Palace defender, maybe not so much, but I think maybe an attacker could still sit within my draft. I think with Nketiah back, it kind of cools me off on Mateta. But I think because they don't have too much depth on the wide positions, it actually seems like maybe a Sarr could be quite interesting. And quite a big differential, I think, on the free hit compared to other templates. But of course, his own ownership within the game for people who might not be using the free hit is actually going to be reasonably high. So something to think in mind. I think you have the opportunity on this free hit to go for teams that are lower owned, that actually have more value, so there's not much risk associated with it. And at the same time, you have some kind of picks that are popular on rolling teams, but could still be good. These would be City players if you've invested into them recently, Palace players, I would say. And I think that's it, really. I don't think there's any more fixtures I really want to target. A lot of them are quite mediocre. And even within the context of, let's say, Sunderland versus Bournemouth, I think that's actually a decent fixture for some of the Bournemouth players, but I've still found it a bit tricky to put a Bournemouth player into my free hit, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But that's kind of how I view the fixtures. Let's just jump into my team. So the team that I'm going to play the free hit with is going to be a 3-5-2 structure. So a return to more classic FPL structure of old. I myself I'm on a bit of a 4-4-2 template, although technically I've got Dewsbury Hall, and maybe I'm just silly for not playing him every week. But yeah, this is a 3-5-2. I think you bank on the highest clean sheet odds that aren't City this week with Martinez, or rather not even Kelleher, because I would still like to have maybe a Brentford defender that has value. It just so happens that Villa's a team that I probably like. I don't think the triple up is that enticing with Villa. Unfortunately, Watkins just is a shadow of himself. And when you look at other players like Buendia who have had good performances, or Malin as well, I mean, these are still players who get subbed off at 45 minutes on, when the chance kind of arises. And especially since you can expect rotation for a team like Villa with game week 14 coming midweek, I just feel like, is there really an opportunity to go anyone else on the free hit in the attacking positions outside of Rodgers? Not really. So I'll go with Martinez here. I'll go with Cash to double up on the defense. Wolves and Burnley have been probably the two worst teams in the league, and for good reason. We're going to target them as they're away from home this time. I have always mentioned that I don't think Wolves are as bad as they look, but their underlying stats are starting to kind of move towards that direction. They've obviously had 10 losses in the league. There's not too much to be said. And I still think, at the end of the day, their attack has been pretty toothless. I think they're close to, let's say, Spurs and Villa in terms of XG, and they haven't actually scored many goals. I think they've scored much less, or maybe even half or 1/3 of the goals of some of the other teams that I mentioned. But yeah, you'll obviously take them when they're away from home. I will go Collins here for a Brentford defender. There's no worry about the suspension threat for Collins in a week like this. I think when you kind of look at the head-to-head in terms of a Vandenberg versus a Collins this week, so far, I believe Collins has a slightly higher DEFCON rate than Vandenberg, so he edges him out there. And then on top of that, I think the small edge to, let's say, historical numbers would be towards Collins, like historically speaking. However, Vandenberg this season has had much higher XG per 90. But I think with defenders, you can almost kind of chalk it down to there's been, like, you can get huge chances over the course of a season. So, for example, like a Vandenberg, I think he had a tap-in of a chance that I can't remember. Maybe it was versus Newcastle potentially, where he just kind of squandered the opportunity. But Collins historically has been pretty good in terms of being able to rack up consistently high XG numbers as well. And I'll probably just take him on the basis that he actually has better DEFCON than Vandenberg. But I don't really mind going Vandenberg either. That's just to say that, these are the two options that you have. If I, for example, I'm going to free hit a little bit later and not lock it in and I lose team value, I wouldn't sweat over, the drop off between Collins and Vandenberg if there is a drop off at all. The City defender of choice that I'm going with, though, especially since their clean sheet odds are so high, and actually since O'Reilly himself is so attacking, is O'Reilly. With the benchings that happened within the Leverkusen game, I think you're going to expect that Nunez is going to start once again in the league, and O'Reilly's going to start alongside him. Now, what I find interesting about City this season is that O'Reilly's numbers do really set himself apart from his peers. So O'Reilly, I believe, has somewhere within the range of, let's say, 0.28 XGI, and Mateus Nunez is actually only at 0.06. I think the key thing with O'Reilly here is that, yeah, he's been a pivotal player for Pep. His minutes recently have been perfect, even though Aït-Nouri's been sitting on the bench. So I almost feel like that his minutes on a match like this will still be very, very good. So, for example, the last, I think, 3 or 4 league games that he's played 90 minutes, although he was rather benched versus Aston Villa. And that so happens to be the City loss, right? That was a City loss where they rotated a little bit at the start of the game and didn't really go so well. He even had to come on at 30 minutes. So I feel like he's almost locked down his place in the team. He's locked down a place within the England squad. I'll take a player in form and the more attacking player in this instance. As far as moving on towards, let's say, auto subs, we'll talk about that in a moment. I just want to shift off towards the rest of my free hit starting 11. So what I plan to go with in the midfield is actually Foden. Once again, Foden's had a very, very timid season, but at the end of the day, this is Leeds at home. This is a really good fixture. Is Foden classically good at sort of farming worse teams? I think yes. I think that's a fair argument to make. I'll take Foden over even a Doku just because of minutes as well. Although Doku, I think, has probably been a little bit more threatening this season. And even Cherki within glimpses has even produced slightly more than Foden, I suppose, within the league. But over the course of, let's say, just expectations and just what we know Foden can do, I'll take Foden on that basis. Rodgers, I think, is just an easy lock from Villa. Going back to the point of this is such a good fixture for Villa, but at the same time, how do you triple up on a team like this? I think the unfortunate thing is, I have no interest in any of the other Villa attackers. Rodgers is the main man for that team. He's taking direct free kicks. He's scoring screamers left and right. Will I own him in FPL? Probably not, but will I absolutely own him on my free hit? I think I'll take this chance. So yeah, I'm going with Rodgers in this case. The most boring part of the free hit is going to be me mentioning that I have Mo Salah on my free hit. Shocker, but I will. I'll have Sade as well. Now, Sade is probably a deliberation between Sade and Dango, but I think Dango, you can see his minutes are quite limited at certain games. This is, of course, an extremely open game. This is a game where I can see Brentford easily lining up with the front three, and I think Dango's minutes could be good, but then you also have to kind of factor in that there's going to be midweek rotation. Sade is someone who just has much better minutes than someone like Dango. I think even the underlying stats for both players are not too far apart in terms of the per 90s, but you just have to kind of be fair to someone like Sade, where even though his numbers are a little bit short of Ouattara's per 90s, he still plays probably 20-30 minutes on average more per game. So I will not take Dango here on this draft. I will take Sade. The last pick within the midfield is actually going to be Gakpo. I feel like this position can change for a lot of managers because I think I am flexing my team value here by going for Gakpo. I have reasonably high team value in terms of being able to create this free hit. So I feel like if someone's looking at this video and they're watching the draft and they're trying to recreate it and they're saying that they can't afford it, which I'm sure there'll be comments about this, by the way, and clearly it just shows that you're not listening to this particular segment. But I think there's alternative options, right? Like I think Sarr, going back to the point about United, is a cheaper option compared to Gakpo that you can go with on the free hit. At the same time, I think Szoboszlai is decent. His minutes seem perfect for Liverpool. There's obviously different avenues towards points, and I'm not so sure that I love Szoboszlai as a right back. From an FPL point scoring sort of possibility viewpoint. But yeah, I would take Gakpo here just because there's an incredibly low amount of depth to this Liverpool team. It feels like his minutes are pretty much nailed. And I still think we're going to see that sort of yo-yo between Isak and Ekitike and not with someone like Gakpo whilst Wirtz is still not training for the team. And that's it. That's my midfield. In the front line, I'm going to go with Haaland and Thiago. I feel like Haaland and Thiago are just locks in the free hit. I mean, I'm sure, I guess I can create some free hits without Thiago in it, and it can be spicy, but, is it spicy in the right way? Probably not. Yeah, I think they're just locks in the draft. A lot of people are going to make Thiago their regular free transfer. I'm going to make Thiago my free transfer probably in Game Week 15. But yeah, I mean, there's not too much of a debate here within the front line. I feel like even within the context of, let's say, is there an opportunity to go 4-4-2? I think so, maybe. If you can't really afford the same sort of midfield of strength, I suppose you can go 4-4-2. Like, What would that really mean? I guess maybe instead of Rodgers, you go for another Villa defender and you kind of back that with the triple defense. I'm not sure people are in love with that concept, but yeah, I think it's a pretty standard free hit draft. I think it would take a lot for me to change or move off the structure other than that Gakpo position. Like if I feel like there's uncertainty around Gakpo, then maybe I'll change my mind. But for now, I feel pretty comfortable that Gakpo is the one to go for. And yeah, that's going to be the draft. Let's talk about the auto subs for a moment. I think Petrovic and Senesi are my key auto subs here, right? With the goalkeeper, you only have one auto sub, so you do want to have a pretty decent goalkeeper. Petrovic is going to be the goalkeeper of choice for me. I feel like, as I've said within multiple videos, I do still think Sunderland's attack is a little bit overrated. Yes, of course, Bournemouth are the poster boys for being bad away this season, and Sunderland are almost the opposite in that they've been great at home. Well, not really the opposite. They're kind of similar to Bournemouth in that sense. But I think the key thing when you actually look at some of the numbers, actually home and away for a team like Sunderland, is that their XG, both home and away, is pretty mediocre. So I think at home, Sunderland are actually bottom 3 within the league on expected goals. So does that sort of make me think I'd feel so bad about having 2 auto subs from a Bournemouth defense? Not really. So I'll go with Petrovic here. I'll go with Senesi, but equally, Senesi doesn't have to be Senesi. You can go for another Bournemouth defender. I guess if you don't have a triple up on Aston Villa or Brentford, I guess you can go for some of those defenders as well. My second defender of choice, because I'm squeezing as much money as possible or humanly possible within my structure, is going to be Reynaldo from Sunderland. I mean, he's been starting all the games, so he's the cheapest player. I can't afford Mukiele right now. Full disclosure, I can't afford Alderete. So I think, yeah, you can probably just go with Reynaldo. And if you can afford more, I mean, you can consider Mukiele because he'd probably be a better auto sub, right? I think there's just better points expectations from some of the more expensive Sunderland defenders. Not that it really matters too much. This is just the second auto sub. And something would have gone dramatically wrong within my free hit draft if I have to call upon Reynaldo here. So I doubt that that's necessary. And then the last pick is just going to be Mark Yu because I'm poor, right? If you're richer, fair play, go Junior Krupi. Seems like he's actually getting starts now, especially since Clivert's not playing. And that's going to be the free hit draft, right? I think don't worry so much about the auto subs. I'm very confident about the starting lineup. Sure, maybe the Liverpool Champions League fixture can sort of maybe reevaluate things. And I think some people might have some interest in maybe an Isak if he starts in the Champions League and then, pivoting towards Ekitike or vice versa. But I still think midfielders are stronger. I think given that the forwards within Liverpool don't have pens, is there that much of a need to kind of spend that much money on the forward that kind of breaks the draft apart? I don't think so. So this is going to be my free hit draft structure. I'll update you guys with my final free hit draft within my team section later this week, and we'll obviously have the cheat sheet ready. And I think for the cheat sheet, we'll trying to do that kind of classical segment of, what are my favorite players on a free hit in terms of like a tier list, right? So we'll do that as well, just so that you guys can be prepped for the free hit if you want alternative picks. But that's going to be my free hit draft for Gaming 13. I'll see you guys soon. Take care and goodbye. And please subscribe as well if you haven't already.